Party. The sky over New Haven burned red. Not the soft red of sunset, but the angry, searing red of plasma fire. Ships, huge, jagged things with black hulls and glowing purple veins, hung in the atmosphere like vultures over a dying animal. They fired without warning, without mercy. The ground shook. Buildings melted. People ran, screamed, vanished in flashes of light. New Haven had been a quiet colony on the edge of human space. Green hills, clean air, farms that fed 3 nearby outposts. It was home to about 80,000 souls. Now, less than a day after the attack began, fewer than 5,000 remained, and most of those were hiding in tunnels, basements, or the rusted shells of old mining rigs. Among them was Luke Hayes. He was 24, lean from years of fixing fusion reactors in low-gravity workshops. His hands were calloused, his eyes tired. He wasn't a soldier. He'd never held a gun outside of basic safety training. But right now he was dragging his little sister, Mia, through a collapsed maintenance tunnel beneath Sector 7. Her ankle twisted, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. "Almost there," Luke whispered, though he wasn't sure if it was true. The tunnel ahead was dark, lit only by the flickering emergency strips on his wristband. Behind them, the distant thump of explosions echoed like a heartbeat slowing down. Mia clutched his arm. "Did Mom and Dad—" She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Luke swallowed hard. Their parents had stayed behind at the central comms hub, trying to send a distress call. That was 6 hours ago. No reply had come, no rescue. Just silence. Then the Krell ships descending like gods of ruin. The Krell weren't like humans. They were tall, armored in chitinous plates with too many eyes and voices that sounded like grinding stone. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't negotiate. They came, they burned, and they left nothing but glass and ash. Luke had seen one up close when the attack started. It had stepped over a child's toy, a small metal dog with blinking eyes, and crushed it without looking. That was when he knew this wasn't war. This was extermination. He pulled Mia into a side chamber where an old cargo freighter, the Starling, sat half buried in rubble. It was his project, a beat-up hauler he'd been restoring for months, hoping to use it for supply runs to the outer farms. Now it was their only chance. "Can it fly?" Mia asked, her voice small. "It's got power," Luke said, already climbing into the cockpit. Wires dangled from the ceiling. Panels were missing, but the core was intact. He flipped switches, tapped screens, rerouted circuits with hands that moved faster than his thoughts. Sparks flew. The engine coughed, then rumbled to life. Outside, the ground trembled again. A shadow passed over the tunnel entrance, a Krell destroyer, low and hungry. "Hold on," Luke said. He slammed the thrusters. The Starling shot forward, tearing through the collapsed roof in a shower of concrete and steel. They burst into the open sky, which was thick with smoke and falling debris. Alarms blared inside the cockpit. Mia gripped the seat, eyes wide. Luke didn't look back. He pushed the ship higher, weaving between burning buildings and falling chunks of orbital platforms. Below, New Haven was gone. What had been a town of laughter and light was now a crater of fire. He set a course for the nearest neutral station, Helios Outpost, 3 light days away. It wasn't safe, but it was better than staying. As they cleared the atmosphere, he finally let himself breathe. Then he saw it. A Krell command ship, sleek and cruel, hanging in orbit like a waiting predator. It turned toward them. "No," Luke whispered. He cut all non-essential power, killed the lights, and drifted behind a piece of wreckage, a shattered solar array from the colony's old power grid. The Krell ship scanned the area, its sensors sweeping like searchlights. For 30 agonizing seconds, Luke held his breath. Mia closed her eyes. Then the ship turned away, joining the rest of the fleet as it regrouped near Mars. They were done with New Haven. They were moving on. Luke exhaled. He turned to Mia. "We made it." She nodded, but her face was pale. "What now?" He didn't answer. He opened a secure channel on the ship's comms, a narrow band burst meant for emergency use only. He recorded a message, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "This is Luke Hayes of the freighter Starling. New Haven colony has been destroyed by unknown hostiles, possibly the Krell. Estimated survivors under 5,000. Fleet strength, at least 20 capital ships, dozens of fighters. They're heading inward, toward Earth. If anyone hears this, warn them. They don't just attack, they erase. He sent the message on a tight beam toward Seoul. It would take days to arrive. Maybe no one would get it, but he had to try. As the starling limped into the dark, Luke looked at the stars. They seemed colder now, empty. He thought of his parents, of his neighbors, of the school where Mia used to play. All gone, but something else stirred in him, not just grief, but anger. A quiet, hard anger that settled in his bones like stone. Far away, deep in the void beyond Pluto, something stirred in response. Buried in ice and silence, wrapped in layers of forgotten alloy, 5 massive shapes began to hum. Their power cores, dormant for decades, flickered to life. Sensors activated, navigation systems rebooted. Ancient protocols unspooled in cold, precise code. The trigger had been pulled. Not by a general, not by a president, but by the destruction of a single colony. By the death of ordinary people. Humanity had built the Titans long ago in secret, during the early days of interstellar travel. Not for conquest, not for show, but as a last resort, a final shield. They were not ships. They were judgments, and now they were waking up. Luke didn't know it yet, but his message hadn't just warned Earth. It had echoed through the solar net, brushing against dormant receivers older than he was. The Titans had heard, and they remembered their purpose. The Krell, celebrating their victory over a primitive species, had no idea what they'd done. They thought they'd crushed a bug. Instead, they'd stepped on a landmine buried by giants. As the starling vanished into the starfield, the first Titan, Leviathan, unfolded its arms from a century of sleep. Its engines glowed blue, then white, then blinding gold. It turned its face toward the inner system, toward the Krell, toward war. Part 2. On the moon, inside a buried command center carved into the Mare Tranquillitatis, Admiral Nora Briggs stared at a screen that should have stayed dark. The alert blinked in soft red letters, Protocol Titan active. She hadn't seen those words since her academy days, when they were taught as myth, like ghost stories for cadets. No one really believed the Titans existed, or if they did, that they'd ever wake up. But the data didn't lie. Energy surges beyond the Kuiper Belt, gravitational ripples matching old design schematics. And then, one by one, 5 massive signatures lit up the long-range sensors, each one bigger than a city. Each one moving. Nora rubbed her temples. She was 52, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many near misses with alien scouts and pirate fleets. But this was different. This was the kind of thing that ended civilizations or saved them. Confirmed source, she said, her voice low. Confirmed, ma'am, replied a young officer named Eli. All 5 Titans are online. Leviathan is already accelerating toward the inner system. Estimated arrival near Mars in 38 hours. Nora exhaled. 38 hours. The Krell fleet was still regrouping there, celebrating their easy win at New Haven. They had no idea what was coming. Meanwhile, aboard the battered freighter Starling, Luke Hayes tinkered with a jury-rigged comms array. He'd used spare parts from the ship's storage bay, old signal boosters, a cracked antenna dish, even wiring from Mia's broken music player. He wasn't trying to call for help anymore. He was listening. Mia sat beside him, her ankle wrapped in a compression bandage, watching the static-filled screen. You think anyone got your message? Maybe, Luke said. But even if they did, what can Earth do? The Krell wiped out New Haven in hours. Our Navy spread thin across the belt. He adjusted a dial. Suddenly, a burst of data crackled through. Encrypted, fast, alien. He recognized the pattern from old xenolinguistics files. Krell. His heart jumped. He patched the signal into the decoder chip he'd salvaged from a downed scout drone weeks ago. It took 10 minutes, but the words began to form. Victory complete. Humans weak. No resistance. Prepare for Sol approach. Earth will fall before harvest moon. Mia's face went pale. They're coming here next, Luke nodded. He looked at the star map on the wall. Earth was just a blue dot now, safe and distant. But not for long. He had to warn someone. But who would believe a freighter engineer with a broken ship and a scared sister? Then he remembered something. An old emergency channel reserved for deep space anomalies. It linked directly to Luna Command's outer net receivers. It was a long shot, but it was all he had. He typed a new message, short and sharp. Krell fleet confirmed. Destination Earth, ETA 5 days. They think we're defenseless. He hit send. The signal shot out into the void, weak but clear. What he didn't know was that the message didn't just reach Luna Command. It also brushed against something far older. Leviathan, the first of the Titans, had been listening since it woke. Its sensors were tuned to hum and distress, not just military codes, but raw, unfiltered signals of fear and survival. Luke's transmission carried both. The Titan's core AI, ancient and vast, parsed the words, the tone, the desperation. It cross-referenced the data with its own observations of the Krell fleet's movements. A decision was made. Not by a human, not by a committee, but by a machine built to protect humanity when humanity could not protect itself. Leviathan altered its course slightly, angling not just toward Mars, but toward the exact point where the Krell would gather. Its engines burned hotter. Its weapon systems hummed to life, drawing power from miniature stars contained in magnetic rings deep within its hull. Back on the moon, Nora watched as Leviathan's speed increased beyond theoretical limits. "It's going to hit them before they even see it coming," she whispered. Her officers scrambled. Some wanted to send human ships to join the fight. Others argued it was suicide. Nora held up a hand. "We don't command the Titans. We never did. We built them to act on their own when the worst happened. And the worst just happened." She turned to Eli. "Send a system-wide alert. All colonies, all ships. Tell them to stand clear of the Mars corridor. Something big is coming." At the same time, Luke's freighter drifted near the edge of the asteroid belt. Mia slept in the back, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Luke stayed awake, watching the stars. He felt helpless, small, like a single leaf in a storm. Then the comms panel beeped. Not a human signal. Not Krell either. This was different, deep, resonant, almost musical. It pulsed in a pattern that felt familiar. Like a heartbeat, he ran a quick analysis. The signal was coming from beyond Neptune, and it was repeating one phrase over and over in plain human code. Guardian active. Threat acknowledged. Stand by. Luke's breath caught. He'd heard rumors, of course, old spacer tales about ghost ships bigger than moons, built in secret during the resource wars. But he'd never believed them. Now, he wasn't so sure. He typed a reply, fingers trembling. "This is Freighter Starling. Are you one of ours?" The response came instantly. Not with words, but with a data packet. It contained star charts, fleet positions, and a single image. A silhouette of a ship so vast it bent light around it. Below it, 2 words. "Leviathan wakes." Luke stared at the screen. For the first time since New Haven fell, he felt something other than fear. Hope, maybe, or awe. Mia stirred behind him. "What is it?" He turned, eyes wide. "We're not alone out here." Far away, Leviathan passed Jupiter, its shadow swallowing moons in its path. Kronos, the second Titan, followed close behind, its hull unfolding like a flower made of steel and fire. Valkyrie powered up near Saturn, its wings of energy spreading wide. Ares and Gaia stirred last, their systems slower to awaken but no less deadly. The Krell, still boasting in their command ships near Mars, had no sensors capable of detecting what was coming. Their tech was advanced but crude compared to the quiet fury of human desperation forged into metal and code. On Earth, people went about their lives, shopping, working, sleeping, unaware that their fate now rested in the hands of machines built by ancestors they'd never known. Nora stood at the observation window of Luna Command, watching the stars. She thought of her own children, safe in Geneva. She hoped they'd never have to know what it cost to keep them safe. Luke powered down the comms but left the channel open. He didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time, he didn't feel like prey. He felt like a witness. And somewhere in the dark, the Titans moved closer, silent and sure, carrying the weight of a species on their backs. Part 3. The Krell fleet gathered near Mars like wolves around a fresh kill. Their ships, sleek, black, and bristling with weapons, formed a tight ring around the red planet. Commanders exchanged victory chants over secure channels. They had crushed New Haven without losing a single warship. To them, humanity was nothing. Soft, slow, unarmed. Earth would fall even faster. High Marshal Vrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, Iron Maw, watching holograms of human cities flash on the display. New York, Tokyo, London. He smiled, a dry clicking sound in his throat. "Burn them all," he ordered. "Leave only glass." But before the order could be sent, the stars ahead of them changed, not with light, not with sound, but with absence. A patch of space went dark as if something huge had swallowed the starlight. Then gravity twisted. Krell sensors screamed warnings. Alarms blared across every ship. From the void, Leviathan emerged. It did not arrive with fire or fanfare. It simply was, suddenly, impossibly there. Its hull stretched longer than 3 Krell dreadnoughts end to end, smooth and dark, etched with glowing lines that pulsed like veins. No weapons were visible. No engines flared. Yet the space around it warped, bending light and time. The Krell fired immediately. Plasma bolts, railgun slugs, energy lances. All vanished before they reached Leviathan's surface, absorbed into a shimmering field that rippled like water. Then Leviathan struck. From its sides, thousands of small craft launched, not missiles but drones. Each one shaped like a silver arrow, silent and fast. They swarmed the Krell fleet like insects. Where they touched, Krell shields flickered and died. Hulls cracked open. Reactors overloaded. Within minutes, 3 destroyers exploded into silent fireballs. Vrak roared in disbelief. "What is this thing?" No one answered. Communications were failing. Ships were vanishing from the tactical map one by one. Then came Kronos. It appeared behind the Krell rearguard, its form jagged and brutal, like a mountain given motion. From its bow, beams of white-hot plasma lanced out, not wild, not scattered, but precise. Each beam struck the heart of a Krell capital ship. No explosions, just clean, total vaporization. One moment, a ship was there. The next, only drifting atoms remained. Panic spread through the Krell ranks. Fighters scrambled, but Valkyrie was already among them. She moved like a dancer, graceful and deadly. Her wings, vast arcs of energy, swept through squadrons, not destroying them but disabling them. Engines died. Weapons froze. Pilots found themselves floating, helpless as Valkyrie's drones latched onto their cockpits and sealed them shut. Ares arrived next, roaring through the battlefield like a storm. Where Leviathan was calm and Kronos was brutal, Ares was rage-made metal. It tore through the Krell lines with sheer force, ramming ships aside, crushing them in magnetic grips, hurling wreckage like stones, and Gaia, slow, steady, immense, positioned itself between the battle and Earth. Its surface glowed with soft blue light. As Krell escape pods and damaged ships fled toward the inner system, Gaia did not fire. Instead, it projected a barrier, a dome of energy that stretched from Venus to the asteroid belt. Anything that passed through it lost all power. Weapons, engines, comms. The Krell were not killed. They were grounded, captured. On the Starling, Luke and Mia watched the battle unfold on long-range scans. They were far enough to be safe, close enough to see the impossible. Mia whispered, "Are those ours?" Luke couldn't speak. He saw Leviathan turn its massive form toward a fleeing Krell cruiser. Instead of destroying it, the Titan released a pulse, a low-frequency wave that knocked out the ship's systems without harming the crew. The cruiser drifted, dark and silent, as drones moved in to secure it. "They're not just fighting," Luke said slowly. "They're judging." Back on Luna Command, Admiral Nora Briggs stood frozen before the main display. Her officers cheered. Some cried. But Nora saw something deeper. The Titans weren't acting like weapons. They were acting like guardians. They spared lives when they could. They targeted only those who kept fighting. They protected Earth without being asked. "It's working," Eli said, voice shaking. "The Krell are retreating," but Nora shook her head. "No, they're not retreating. They're being erased," and it was true. The Krell fleet was collapsing. Ships that tried to jump to warp found their drives disabled by pulses from Ares. Those that fired were answered by Kronos with finality. Those that surrendered were gently corralled by Valkyrie and Gaia. High Marshal Vrak, desperate, ordered a final charge. He aimed the Iron Maw straight at Leviathan, overloading his core for a suicide blast. Leviathan did not move. As the Iron Maw closed in, a single beam, thin as a thread, shot from Leviathan's bow. It pierced the Krell flagship's bridge, not exploding, but disabling only the command systems. Vrak was alive but powerless. His ship drifted, dark and broken, as drones swarmed it. The battle was over in less than an hour. Silence returned to the Mars corridor. Debris floated. Escape pods blinked with rescue beacons. and the 5 Titans hung in space, unmoving, watching. On Earth, people had seen it all. Broadcasts from orbital cameras showed the entire fight. At first fear, then confusion, then awe. Crowds gathered in streets, staring at sky screens, whispering the same words. The Titans, they're real. Luke finally broke the silence on the Starling. They didn't just save us. They showed the galaxy what happens when you hurt us. Mia nodded, tears in her eyes. Maybe now they'll think twice. Far away, Leviathan turned its face toward the outer dark. Its sensors scanned for more threats. Its systems remained alert. The job wasn't done. The Krell homeworld still waited, and other empires were watching. But for now, Earth was safe, and humanity, for the first time in its history, was not the hunted. It was the protected. Part 4. The victory near Mars left Earth stunned. People celebrated in the streets, but fear still clung to the edges of their joy. The Titans had saved them, yes, but what were they really? Machines that could wipe out an alien armada in an hour could just as easily turn on humanity. No one knew who had built them or who controlled them. They answered to no government, no fleet, no law. On Luna Command, Admiral Nora Briggs faced growing pressure. The Earth Security Council demanded she establish contact with the Titans to bring them under human authority. Some generals wanted to order them to hunt down the Krell to their homeworld and burn it to nothing. Others argued the Titans were too dangerous to exist at all. Nora disagreed. She had watched the battle logs again and again. The Titans hadn't slaughtered blindly. They had disabled, captured, spared. They acted with purpose, not rage. But she knew she couldn't convince the Council with data alone. They needed proof the Titans understood humanity, not just as a species to protect, but as people with hearts, with choices. Then a message came from the edge of the belt. It was Luke Hayes. He and Mia had guided the Starling to a quiet repair dock near Ceres. There, Luke had been studying the signal Leviathan sent him. He noticed something strange. The Titan didn't just respond to military codes. It reacted to emotional patterns in human speech, to the tone of distress, to the weight of loss. It wasn't just listening to words. It was listening to meaning. Luke sent a new proposal to Luna Command. Don't try to command them, he wrote. Talk to them. Not as soldiers, as humans. Nora read the message 3 times. Then she called Luke directly. You really think they'll understand? She asked. I think they were built to, Luke replied. Not to obey. To protect what we value. And we don't just value survival. We value mercy. Nora made her decision. She ordered a secure channel opened, not a military frequency, but a civilian one, the kind used for family calls across the system. Then she asked Luke and Mia to help craft a message. Mia, who had studied ancient languages and poetry before the war, suggested they use something simple. Not a demand, not a command, a story. They recorded it together. Luke spoke first, his voice calm but raw. My name is Luke Hayes. I lost my home, my parents, my world, but I still have my sister, and I don't want more families to suffer like ours did. Then Mia spoke, soft but clear. We fight to live, not to destroy. If you can hear us, remember that. They added no threats, no orders, just truth. The message was sent on an open band aimed not at one Titan, but all 5. For hours, nothing happened. The Council grew impatient. Generals muttered about wasted time. But Nora waited. Then, deep in space, Gaia, the Titan that had shielded Earth, shifted its position. It moved away from the debris field and toward the cluster of disabled Krell ships. Instead of holding them captive, it began releasing them. One by one, their systems came back online, but only enough to fly, not to fight. The Krell crews, confused, powered up their engines and fled toward the outer rim, not looking back. At the same time, Kronos stopped scanning for hidden Krell fighters. Ares powered down its main weapons, Valkyrie retracted its energy wings, and Leviathan turned toward Earth, not to attack, to watch. Luna Command held its breath. Then Leviathan sent a reply, not in code, not in data, but in a single image. It showed Earth whole and blue, surrounded by a ring of light, and in the center 2 small figures, a man and a woman standing together. It was a symbol, protection, not ownership, not war, care. Nora let out a long breath. They understand, but the hard part wasn't over. The Krell leadership, though broken, was not gone. Their emperor, hidden deep in the Vorna system, still had ships, still had pride, and now he was afraid. Fear made him desperate. He began calling on old allies, offering them human territory in exchange for support. Rumors spread of a new coalition forming. 3 alien empires, all wary of humanity's sudden power. Earth's leaders argued again. Some wanted the Titans to strike first, crush the Krell homeworld before they could regroup. Finish it, one general said. No more colonies lost. No more New Havens. Luke heard the debate on public feeds. He knew what that path led to. Endless war. More glassed worlds. More graves. He contacted Nora again. If we become what the Krell were, then we've already lost, she agreed. But she needed more than words. She needed the Titans to show the galaxy that humanity was not a threat, but a force that chose restraint. So she asked Luke and Mia to do something bold. She gave them clearance to approach Leviathan. The Starling, patched and painted with a white peace stripe, drifted slowly toward the massive Titan. Luke's hands shook on the controls. Mia held his shoulder. Leviathan did not move. It did not fire. It simply waited. When they were close enough, a soft beam of light reached out from the Titan's hull. A docking signal. Luke guided the freighter inside. What they found shocked them. The interior was not cold metal and wires. It was warm, quiet, filled with soft light and gentle hums. Walls shifted to guide them. Doors opened without sound. At the heart of the ship, a single chamber glowed with a sphere of blue energy, the Titan's core. As they stood before it, a voice spoke, not through speakers but in their minds. Calm, ancient, human, we hear you. Luke swallowed. We don't want revenge. We want peace. But we won't be weak again, the core pulsed. Peace requires strength. You have both. Mia stepped forward. Will you help us show the others? Not just that we can fight, but that we choose not to? A long pause. Then the voice returned. We were built for this moment. Not to rule. Not to destroy. To guard your choice. When Luke and Mia returned to the Starling, they carried a new message. One the Titans had helped them shape. It was broadcast across every known channel in every major language, human and alien alike. The humans do not seek your worlds, but harm their people and you will face the Guardians. Spare them and you will find neighbors. The message spread fast. Some empires laughed. Others listened. The Krell Emperor hesitated. His allies began to doubt. And far above Mars, the 5 Titans held their silence, not as weapons waiting to fire, but as promises kept. Part 5. The Krell Emperor did not send another fleet. He did not dare. Word had spread across the stars faster than any ship could fly. The humans were not the soft, scattered people the Krell had believed them to be. They had guardians, silent, ancient, and unstoppable. Empires that had once eyed Earth systems with greed now spoke of it with caution. Trade routes shifted. Old threats vanished. New treaties were signed not out of kindness but respect. On Earth, life slowly returned to something like normal. The ruins of New Haven were not forgotten, but new colonies rose in its place, built stronger, wiser. Memorials stood in every city, not just for the dead but for the choice humanity had made, to fight when needed but never to become monsters in return. Luke and Mia came home. They landed the Starling at a quiet spaceport in Oregon, where green hills rolled under a clear sky. Reporters wanted interviews. Politicians wanted speeches. But Luke only asked for one thing, a place to work. He was given a post at the new Titan Research Initiative, a joint project between Earth, Luna, and the Belt. Its goal was not to control the Titans, but to understand them, to learn from the minds that had built them generations ago. Mia joined a cultural exchange program, teaching alien diplomats about human history, art, and the value of mercy. She often spoke of New Haven not with anger but with hope. We lost everything, she would say, but we chose to build something better. The Titans themselves did not leave. They took positions in high orbit, Leviathan near Jupiter, Kronos patrolling the edge of the system, Valkyrie watching over the colonies, Ares guarding the shipyards, and Gaia floating quietly between Earth and Mars. Its soft blue light a constant reminder that they were not alone. They did not speak often, but when they did, the whole system listened. One day, a small Krell vessel appeared near the asteroid belt. It carried no weapons. Only a single envoy, old and weary, bearing a message of surrender. The Krell Empire had fractured. Their subjects had risen up, inspired by stories of human restraint. The Emperor was gone, In his place stood a council that wanted peace. The envoy asked to speak with the Titans. Instead, he was brought to Luke. They met in a simple room on Ceres, with a window looking out at the stars. The Krell envoy, his armor dull and scarred, bowed his head. "We thought you were weak," he said through a translator. "We were wrong. Not because you have giants in the sky, but because you did not use them to crush us when you could have." Luke nodded. "Strength isn't about how much you can destroy. It's about what you choose to protect." The envoy stayed for weeks, negotiating terms. No land was taken. No lives demanded in payment. Only a promise. Never again. Back on Earth, Admiral Nora Briggs retired. She moved to a small house by the sea where she watched the sunset and thought of the quiet giants watching over them all. She never gave interviews. But sometimes when children asked her what the Titans were, she would smile and say, "They're the reason we get to keep being human." Years passed. New ships flew between the stars, painted in white and blue, the colors of peace and vigilance. Human engineers, led by Luke, began designing smaller vessels inspired by Titan technology. Not for war, but for healing, for rescue, for exploration. They called them Wardens. Each one carried a piece of the same code that lived in the Titans: protect, but do not punish. One evening, Luke stood on a platform near the lunar shipyards, looking up at Leviathan, now half hidden in shadow. Mia joined him, holding 2 cups of hot tea. "Do you think they'll ever sleep again?" she asked. Luke shook his head. "I don't think they were built to sleep. I think they were built to wait. For us to grow, to prove we're worth protecting." Mia smiled. "We're trying," and they were. Across the system, humans worked, dreamed, argued, loved. They made mistakes. They learned. They remembered New Haven not as an end, but as a beginning. Far beyond the edge of known space, other civilizations whispered the old warning to their young. Do not provoke the humans. You may think them weak, but awaken their Titans and you awaken extinction itself. But those who looked closer saw the truth. The Titans did not bring extinction. They brought balance. They were not weapons of war, but shields of hope. And as long as they watched the stars, humanity could walk beneath them without fear.